In 1950, the North American Mustang already belonged to another age. During the Second World War, it had become famous as a long-range escort fighter, carrying Allied air power deep into enemy territory. 5 years later, jet aircraft were taking its place. The Mustang appeared to be approaching the end of its frontline career. Then war came to Korea, and this fighter was given a new and still more dangerous role. When North Korean forces crossed the 38th parallel on June 25, 1950, the United Nations needed aircraft that could support troops on the ground. The first American jets were fast, but they consumed fuel quickly and operated mainly from bases in Japan. They had limited time over the battlefield. The Mustang, redesignated F-51 by the United States Air Force in 1948, could fly farther, remain near the front longer, and operate from shorter and less developed airfields. Many Mustangs available in the region had been used for training or held in reserve. They were returned to combat because they could be deployed, not because anyone believed the propeller-driven fighter had suddenly become modern again. Its speed, range, and ability to carry bombs and rockets made it valuable while the air and ground campaign was still being improvised. Every mission began with work performed far from the target. Armorers delivered ammunition and loaded long belts into the Mustang's wings. The aircraft carried 6 50-caliber Browning machine guns, 3 in each wing. Together, they could produce a concentrated stream of fire against vehicles, buildings, railway equipment, and exposed positions. Other crews refueled the aircraft and prepared the weapons carried beneath its wings. Depending on the assignment, an F-51 could take bombs, 5-inch rockets, additional fuel tanks, or a combination of them. The rockets offered greater striking power against hardened targets, while bombs could be used against bridges, supply areas, and transportation routes. External tanks extended the aircraft's range, but every item added weight and affected its handling. These scenes show how much labor stood behind a single combat sortie. Ammunition had to be inspected and loaded correctly. Rockets needed to be secured and connected. Fuel, oil, engine systems, controls, and tires all required attention. A small mistake made on the ground could become fatal after takeoff. The pilots also needed a plan. During the briefing, they received the route, target information, weather conditions, known defenses, and the position of friendly troops. Korea's front lines could move rapidly, especially during the first year of the war. From the cockpit, a road, village, or group of vehicles might be difficult to identify. When attacks were made close to friendly forces, accurate navigation and target recognition were essential. The Mustang's Packard-built Merlin engine had created one of the best high-altitude fighters of the Second World War. In Korea, that same aircraft often flew very low. Pilots searched for targets along roads, railways, river valleys, and mountain passes. At this height, they could see more clearly and attack with greater accuracy. They were also brought within range of rifles, machine guns, and light anti-aircraft weapons. The aircraft now begin to move. Engines are started, checks are completed, and the Mustangs taxi toward the runway. With fuel and weapons beneath the wings, a heavily loaded aircraft requires careful handling. One after another, the fighters accelerate, lift from the field, and form up for the journey toward the front. For the ground crews, the departure did not end the mission. They would wait for the formation to return, ready to refuel, rearm, inspect, and repair the aircraft. They also knew that some Mustangs might come back damaged and that others might not return at all. By 1951, the F-51 had become closely associated with close air support and armed reconnaissance in Korea. Its pilots attacked supply columns, railway traffic, bridges, artillery positions, and troops. They also responded to requests from ground units under pressure. A flight could be redirected while airborne as new targets or emergencies appeared. If you enjoy these restored films, please subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. It really helps our channel. Thank you for your support. This work demanded repeated low-level attacks. A pilot first had to locate the target, Then position the aircraft for a firing pass. During the dive, the ground expanded rapidly in the windscreen. There were only seconds to aim, release the weapons, and pull away before terrain or defensive fire made escape impossible. Other aircraft followed in sequence, each pilot watching the target, the leader, and the Mustangs around him. The gun camera footage records only fragments of that experience. The landscape moves quickly beneath the aircraft. Smoke and sudden flashes obscure the view. A target appears briefly and then passes under the nose. Without the original mission report, the individual locations and results cannot be identified with certainty. What survives is the speed and violence of the attack itself. The Mustang was effective in this role, but it was vulnerable. Unlike radial engine aircraft designed specifically for ground attack, the F-51 used a liquid-cooled engine. Its radiator and coolant lines could be damaged by a single well-placed round. A Mustang might continue flying for a short time, but the loss of coolant could eventually force the pilot to land or abandon the aircraft. It helped bridge the gap between the piston engine war of the 1940s and the jet conflict developing over Korea. Above the battlefield, newer aircraft, such as the F-86 Sabre, fought high-speed air battles. Below them, F-51s continued the demanding work of attacking targets close to the ground. Now the formation returns. The Mustangs approach the airfield, lower their landing gear, and come back to a place that appears calm compared with the front. Only after landing can the real condition of each aircraft be assessed. Mechanics look for bullet holes, damaged panels, fluid leaks, and signs of stress. Even a fighter that returns safely might require many hours of repair before flying again. The wreckage shown near the end is a reminder of what these missions cost. A broken Mustang is more than damaged machinery. Behind it were a pilot, a maintenance team, armorers, fuel crews, and the people waiting beside the runway. Every empty position in a returning formation carried a meaning understood immediately by those on the ground. The Mustang entered history as one of the great fighters of the Second World War. Korea added a different chapter to that legend. Here it was no longer the newest aircraft, and it rarely fought the kind of campaign for which it had originally become famous. Instead, it carried bombs, rockets, and ammunition into some of the most dangerous airspace of the war, often only a few hundred feet above the ground. Its return to combat was not a victory of nostalgia over technology. It was a practical response to an emergency. The F-51 could reach the battlefield, remain there, strike hard, and operate from bases close to the fighting. Those strengths kept it useful. Its vulnerabilities made every sortie a risk. The images preserved in this film connect both sides of that story: the careful preparation on the ground and the sudden violence seen through the gun camera. Together, they show why the Mustang remained important in Korea and why each safe return truly mattered. If you enjoy these restored films, please subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. It really helps our channel. Thank you for your support.